I want you to picture something for a second. Just imagine waking up tomorrow and the world outside your window looks mostly the same, right?
Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah. The streets are there, the trees are there, the sky is its usual color. But something feels fundamentally just deeply broken.
Right.
You walk outside and you notice there are no bugs.
Hmm.
None.
Yeah.
Like, no ants on the sidewalk, no flies buzzing around the trash can, no bees in the flowers.
Which is an incredibly eerie thought.
It really is. And then you take a deep breath and the air just feels heavy. It feels like the pollution has finally reached this tipping point where it is not just, a statistic you scroll past on the news anymore.
It is tangible.
Exactly. It is a physical weight just suffocating the actual earth beneath your feet.
Yeah.
And here is the truly terrifying part of the scenario. The end of the world isn't some distant, abstract threat looming in the year 2050 or 2100. It is happening right now. Today. You're standing in it.
And the terrifying thing is, in the world we are looking at today, that tipping point has already passed. We are so culturally accustomed to these post-apocalyptic stories where the disaster has already happened, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
people are just scavenging, picking up the
Use
pieces.
math style. Yeah.
Exactly. But the source material we are unpacking today places you right at the precipice.
Mm.
It is the apocalypse in motion. You are feeling the heat of the fire, but the house hasn't completely burned down yet.
That distinction is exactly why we are doing a deep dive into this specific source material today. We are looking at a deeply complex, interactive narrative. Specifically, this is a recorded session of a tabletop role-playing game set in the universe of Werewolf.
Which is just a fantastic setting.
It is. Now, if you are not familiar with tabletop RPGs, just think of it as collaborative, interactive storytelling. You have a central narrator, usually called a game master, who controls the world, the villains, the weather, all the consequences.
Right, they set the stage.
But the main characters are controlled by individual players making real-time decisions. And in this particular game, those characters are not your classic, horror movie monsters howling at a full moon.
No, definitely not.
In this universe, they are called the Guru. They are apex predators, yes, but they are essentially eco-warriors. They fight this desperate, seemingly losing war against a cosmic spiritual force of decay and corruption that they call the Worm.
Which is a framing that completely recontextualizes the werewolf myth. I mean, entirely.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the worm isn't a giant dragon or scary beast hiding in a cave somewhere. It manifests in the real world through corporate greed, through systemic environmental destruction, through strip mining and literal pollution.
It is the system itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The game master in this narrative has synthesized mythical, cosmic horror with very grounded modern-day anxieties. When the Guru fight the worm, they aren't just fighting monsters. They are fighting the industrialized death of the planet.
So our mission for this deep dive is to pull this narrative apart. We are going to look at the immense stakes of this environmental apocalypse. But the core of what we want to explore and what makes this specific session so gripping is the wildly complex, deeply tense social dynamics between the different werewolf tribes.
Because they have to work together.
Right. To fight this world-ending threat, these incredibly different factions are forced to cooperate. And spoiler alert, they do not like each other. Not even a little bit.
This is where the interactive nature of the medium really elevates the story.
Yeah.
Because the characters are controlled by different players, the friction isn't just scripted by a single author in a room.
It is spontaneous.
Yeah, it operates as this brilliant mirror for real-world environmental movements or, any massive social cause, really. It operates as a sociological study of divided factions trying to unite against a monolithic, well-funded corporate threat.
Which is so relevant.
Right. You have to ask yourself, how do you save the world when the people on your side have fundamentally opposing, deeply entrenched views on what saving the world actually means in practice?
Okay, so let's start with where the story begins, because the location the Game Master has chosen for this gathering tells you everything you need to know about how badly the Guru are losing this war.
Oh, the setting is perfectly chosen.
They are meeting in a place called the Hammersley Wild Area, or the HWA, in Pennsylvania. And the explicit reason they are gathering there is that it is the furthest point in the entire state of Pennsylvania from any paved road.
The geographical isolation is a physical manifestation of their desperation.
Yeah, it really is.
Because the Guru are creatures of nature, and nature is quite literally shrinking. I mean, every paved road, every expanding suburb, every new piece of concrete infrastructure represents the creeping advance of the worm.
They are getting boxed in.
Exactly. They have to retreat to the deepest, most untouched pocket of wilderness just to feel safe enough to hold a meeting. And the game master sets the tone immediately with this single haunting phrase, Gaia is bleeding.
Gaia is bleeding. It just hits you right away.
The earth itself is dying, and they're out of safe havens.
So they call this gathering a moot. It is a vital, sacred meeting meant to address the impending apocalypse. But the analogy that keeps popping into my head as I read through the source material is that of an emergency, high-stakes global climate summit. Oh, that is a great way to look at it.
Right. Like, imagine you are watching delegates from all over the world arrive. The tension is sky high. The fate of the planet is on the line. But instead of politicians in suits arguing over carbon credits and treaty language, the delegates are towering, rage-fueled werewolves who historically solve their diplomatic disputes by tearing out throats.
It is a recipe for disaster.
Totally. How do creatures defined by pure, primal rage organize a political summit? The short answer is, with extreme difficulty. It is a logistical and diplomatic nightmare. And the narrative establishes right away that just getting to this remote location is a massive, highly coordinated undertaking.
Because they can't just take an Uber.
Exactly. For some of these tribes, traveling isn't just about hopping in a car. It is a deeply spiritual, dangerous journey. The text spends a lot of time describing these pathways called moon bridges.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to ask about that. I found the mechanics of the moon bridges fascinating, but honestly a bit confusing at first glance. It sounds like a simple teleportation portal, right? But the game master goes out of his way to clarify that it is not.
It is definitely not a simple sci-fi portal. The game master actually corrects a player early on, emphasizing that bridge is a much more accurate analogy than portal.
Okay, how so?
Well, it involves stepping sideways out of physical reality and into the Umbra, which is the spirit realm that mirrors our world. So navigating a moon bridge means ferrying souls across vast spiritual distances between predetermined anchored locations.
And it requires guides, right? These specialized mystics they call theurges, just to make sure the travelers get through safely. Because the spirit world isn't empty.
No, definitely not.
It is populated by entities, some benign, some deeply hostile.
Exactly. You are essentially marching through a spiritual gauntlet. It demands significant magical energy and physical endurance. The fact that they are opening multiple moon bridges to this remote part of Pennsylvania sets a profoundly solemn, epic tone from the very first scene.
Right. It establishes the stakes.
This isn't a casual check-in. The world is ending, and the Geru are expending vast amounts of their dwindling spiritual resources just to get in the same room.
But the solemnity of that mystical setup is almost immediately shattered by the reality of who actually shows up to this moot. I mean, the ideological clash begins the moment feet or paws hit the dirt.
Oh, character introductions are incredible.
To really grasp the disaster that is about to unfold, you have to look at the wildly different individuals answering this call. So let's start with the tension between the urban and the wild. First, we are introduced to a character named Mazden Papilloni. He is what they call a lupus guru.
And the lupus designation is crucial here. It means he was born as a wolf. He is not a human being who is bitten and turns into a wolf under a full moon. He is a naturally born wolf who discovered he has the ability to shift into a human form, among others.
And the source material notes he is less than 3 years old, which, because of how wolves mature, means he is a fully grown, capable adult in his wolf form.
But not as a human form.
Right. When he shifts into his human form, which they call the Humid form, he looks like a lanky, confused teenager. And the most vital piece of his character is that he has absolutely zero concept of human civilization.
None whatsoever.
He doesn't know what a backpack made of nylon is. He has no idea what a calendar year is or what money does. He's pure, unadulterated nature.
From a thematic standpoint, Papilloni represents the absolute purest connection to Gaia, the Earth Mother. He is the thing they are all trying to protect.
But that purity makes him incredibly vulnerable, doesn't it?
Oh, completely. When you are fighting a modern corporate enemy that uses shell companies, surveillance, and legal loopholes, a character who doesn't understand the concept of a doorknob is at a massive disadvantage.
I completely agree. And the narrative immediately contrasts him with Artie Brooks.
Oh, Artie.
Yeah, Artie is from a tribe called the Children of Gaia. He is a 21-year-old college student at the University of Pennsylvania.
Right in the city.
Exactly. He shows up to this primal wilderness gathering wearing a college sweater, a college shirt, and he is carrying a concealed handgun.
A werewolf carrying a firearm is a very striking, almost contradictory image. It immediately tells you how far removed he is from his primal roots.
But let me challenge you on that, because the source material provides a deeply layered reason for his behavior, especially regarding how he traveled there.
Hmm.
His elder forced him to walk across the entire state of Pennsylvania for days just to get to this moot.
And not for the reason you might think.
Right. Not to build character in the traditional sense, but to respect the journey and to minimize his carbon footprint.
It is amazing.
There is this almost darkly comedic moment in the transcript where the elder tells Artie they will only take a public bus if it starts snowing too hard, because the carbon emissions balance out if there are 30 people on board.
The math of environmental guilt.
Exactly. The second the snow stops, the elder kicks him off the bus and says, "Nope, the ratio's off, we are walking."
It is a brilliant distillation of modern eco-anxiety. If we look at the immediate thematic tension, you have Papilloni on one side, representing the naive instinct of the wolf. Papilloni doesn't have to think about carbon footprints or emissions because he is an animal living perfectly within the ecosystem. He just exists.
Right, he doesn't have a footprint.
On the other side, you have Artie, representing the guilt-ridden modern human experience. Artie is a creature of the earth, but he is helplessly entangled in the very industrialized system that is destroying it. He is constantly trying to offset his own existence.
It is a stark contrast between living in nature versus trying to manage nature. But that tension is honestly nothing compared to the clash between corporate technology and aristocratic privilege.
Oh boy, the Glasswalkers and the Silver Fangs.
Exactly. Enter Edwin Ocampo from the Glasswalkers tribe. Now, from what I gather from the source material, the Glasswalkers are a highly controversial faction within the Garo Nation, right?
Highly controversial. The Glasswalkers are the urbanites. While the rest of the tribes retreat to the woods and mourn the loss of the wilderness, the Glasswalkers have actively adapted to the city, to technology, to human progress.
They embrace it.
Yeah, they view the city as just another type of jungle to be mastered.
And Edwin leans all the way into that philosophy. He takes a direct commercial flight into Philadelphia. He is wearing expensive jungle camo that the game master explicitly notes does not blend into the Pennsylvania woods. It is purely a fashion statement.
Of course it is.
He gets picked up in a mid-range SUV by another corporate-looking guy in a quarter-zip fleece vest. He relies heavily on a high-tech PDA. And my absolute favorite detail, his tribe literally packs him a portable bidet for this wilderness retreat.
A portable bidet.
Yes. Because they tell him using toilet paper is a violation of their leave no trace ethics, but, quote, "We're not animals."
It is a fantastic piece of world building, honestly, because it shows how fractured their culture has become. Edwin is attempting to use the tools of the enemy, global travel, digital technology, corporate aesthetics, to fight the enemy. He believes you can't beat a multi-billion-dollar corporation with claws and fangs, right?
Yeah.
You have to beat them in the boardroom and the server room.
Wait, I have to push back on that logic, though. If the Glasswalkers are eco-warriors trying to save the Earth from industrial pollution, isn't flying on commercial jets and driving SUVs incredibly hypocritical? Like, how do they justify contributing to the very pollution they are supposed to be fighting?
That is the exact criticism the other tribes hurl at them constantly. The Glasswalkers justify it as a necessary evil, a tactical compromise. They argue that refusing to use modern tools just ensures their defeat.
The ends justify the means.
Exactly. It is the classic paradox of trying to dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. They believe they can purify the technology once they win the war, but the other tribes view them as already corrupted by it.
And no one views them with more disdain than the Silver Fangs.
Oh, absolutely not.
If Edwin is the Silicon Valley tech bro of the werewolf world, then Havel Ivanovich, who saunters in next, is the old money royalty. The Silver Fangs are the aristocratic lineage of the Guru. They claim a sort of divine right to rule based on the purity of their bloodlines.
They are the kings.
And Havel is a Russian noble who refuses to engage with the mundane world. He doesn't take a commercial flight. He flies in on a private jet.
And he does so while remaining entirely in his wolf form.
Yes, that detail is wild. The transcript details him lounging on the jet as a wolf, having human attendants serve him raw beef carpaccio and vintage champagne, which he snobbishly thinks of as just gross, fizzy water. Then, he is picked up in a luxury Escalade, drives as far into the protected wilderness as money, infrastructure, and bribes can physically get him, and only walks the final 6 hours. And he is surrounded by an entourage in designer suits. From the second he arrives, he demands absolute deference.
Think about the sociological implications of that entrance. You have the glasswalkers prioritizing efficiency, data, and modern resources. And then you have the Silverfangs, representing historical monarchies. They believe in tradition, legacy, and hierarchy above all else.
It is about status.
Completely. For a Silverfang, it isn't just about winning the war against the worm, it is about ensuring that everyone knows they are the ones leading the charge. If they win, but a lesser tribe gets the credit, a Silverfang might view that as a failure.
It is absurd when you really picture it. You have these mythical creatures born of primal rage, and one of them requires a portable bidet, while the other requires an Escalade and a private jet.
Yeah, it is quite the image.
But the friction doesn't stop with wealth and technology. We also get a deep dive into the clash between the physical and the spiritual, the berserker versus the philosopher.
This dynamic lays bare the extreme ends of how the Garou process their trauma and their duty.
We meet Eagle, or Aegle, from the Get of Fenris tribe. He arrives via one of those mystical moon bridges from northern Europe, but he doesn't arrive looking triumphant. He shows up visibly battered. He has a black eye and bruised ribs.
And the reason why is so telling.
Right, because his tribal elder literally beat him up for the entire duration of the journey, framing it as sparring to test his honor and glory. The Get of Fenris are the warriors. They are the berserkers. Eagle is described as huge, imposing, and completely silent.
That silence is a very deliberate character choice. For the Get of Fenris, action is the only language that holds weight. They view the intellectual debates of the Glasswalkers and the political maneuvering of the Silverfangs as cowardice.
Talk is cheap to them.
Exactly. Pain is just a teaching tool. They are the shock troops, internalizing generations of trauma and turning it into a weapon. They believe the only way to cleanse the world is to drown the corruption in blood.
And arriving from the literal opposite side of the world, we have Chen Xingxing of the Stargazers tribe. The Stargazers are entirely different. The source text notes they separated from the main Garou nation ages ago. They are rare, isolated, and focused on introspection.
Very monastic.
Yes, very. Chen had to hunt for his own food across the United States to get there. He arrives wearing a loose denim jacket with small flowers embroidered on the pocket, bead bracelets, and a simple watch. He represents spiritual balance, mindfulness, the quiet mind.
Put yourself in the shoes of the game master here for a second. You have engineered an incredible powder keg.
Oh, it is a ticking bomb.
You have a pure wolf who doesn't understand human speech, a guilt-ridden college kid worried about emissions, a corporate hacker, a Russian aristocrat demanding fealty, a bloodthirsty berserker conditioned by violence, and a Zen philosopher. And you're telling them they all have to share a campfire, form a cohesive unit, and save the world.
Which brings us perfectly to the first night in the Hammersley Wild area. Before any of the official moot business happens, they have to survive a night together in the freezing woods. And the way the sequence plays out is an absolute masterclass. It is a perfect microcosm of their entire social dynamic.
It really is.
The local host tells Papilloni, the wolf-born kid, to take care of the guests. Papilloni has no idea what to do. He is internally panicking.
Because the expectations of human hospitality, like offering food, preparing a feeding area, those are entirely artificial constructs to a wolf. A wolf understands pack hierarchy and sharing a kill, but not hosting.
Right. So Edwin, the tech bro, sees the kid struggling, reaches into his pocket, and just hands Papilloni a can of chili.
Just a tin can.
Yeah. And Papilloni has only ever seen a tin can once in his life when it fell out of a hunter's truck. He doesn't know about pull tabs or can openers, so he just uses his massive wolf jaws to bite the top off the metal can to get to the food inside. It is such a visceral, funny image of pure nature colliding head-on with processed human goods.
But the real sociological test of the evening happens when they try to build a fire.
Yes. The host tasks them with getting a fire going. Artie, the college student, and Shen, the philosopher, volunteer to gather wood. They are the city wolves. They wander into the dark, and they come back with incredibly wet wood.
Basically useless.
In Artie's case, he literally brings back rocks and pieces of trash he thought would burn. They completely fail at the most basic survival skill.
And this is where we see the unspoken hierarchies establish themselves without a single word being spoken. Look at how Havel, the Silverfang aristocrat, reacts. He watches them fail.
He doesn't help them at all.
No. Does he offer to teach them? No. Does he berate them? No. He just silently strolls off into the woods and effortlessly returns a few minutes later with the exact perfect amount of dry, seasoned kindling to build a roaring fire.
And he doesn't say a word.
He doesn't mock them verbally, because his sheer competence is a quiet, undeniable assertion of dominance. The older Silver Fangs at the camp watch from a distance and nod in approval. He is physically proving why his tribe claims the divine right to rule. Stepping in to manage a lesser task would diminish his status. Doing it effortlessly proves his superiority.
Meanwhile, Eagle, the bruised berserker, watches this display and clearly decides he needs to prove his own worth. He cannot let the aristocratic wolf hold the monopoly on competence, so he goes hunting. Relying entirely on his heightened senses, he tracks down a massive stag, runs it down, and completely eviscerates it in a matter of minutes. He drags the heavy carcass back to the fire.
The psychology of what he does next is crucial for understanding pack dynamics.
Right, because he doesn't just toss the meat into the center of the group for everyone to share. He takes his bite first, he carves out the choice cut for himself, and then, very deliberately, he offers the next piece to Havel, the Silver Fang.
This sequence beautifully illustrates how respect operates in Garou culture. Respect isn't freely given because you have a college degree or because you meditate or because you have a lot of money. It is taken through survival skills and blood.
It is incredibly primal.
Yeah. When Eagle takes the first bite, he is asserting his own primal strength. He made the kill, he claims the victor's spoils. But by offering the very next piece to the Silver Fang, he is engaging in primal politicking. He is acknowledging the ancient ingrained hierarchy of the tribes. He is showing deference to the perceived king, effectively cementing an alliance between military might and political power.
And the rest of them. The city wolves and the tech bro, they're left scrambling to make skewers out of wet sticks just to cook the leftover scraps over the fire. It is a brutal sorting of the pecking order on night one. You really feel the isolation of the modern wolves in this ancient setting.
They survive the night, but the social lines are firmly drawn. And the next morning, the crushing reality of their actual mission sets in.
At dawn, the entire gathering participates in a mandatory ritual called the Greeting of the Sun. The local leader, a Garou named Stands Against the Drill, which tells you everything you need to know about his priorities, leads them in specific breathing exercises. They physically invite the sun's rays into their bodies to warm them against the freezing Pennsylvania winter. It is a rare, beautiful moment of unity. But as soon as the ritual ends, the briefing begins.
Stands Against the Drill lays out the target. It's a location called Little Meadows.
The narrative describes the leader drawing a map in the dirt using rocks and twigs. He builds a crude representation of a tiny Pennsylvania town, a highway intersection, a little downtown strip. But then he explains that a sickness has burned its way into the land beneath the town. The town has been completely swallowed by a corporate entity called Wern and Yang Resource Management.
Wern and Yang. It is a very thinly veiled corporate front for the worm. This is where the narrative directly critiques modern corporate ESG or environmental, social, and governance initiatives.
Right, and I want to be clear to you, the listener, we are impartially reporting what is in the source text here, not taking sides on real-world ESG policies. But the game uses this to frame their villains.
Exactly. The source material is suggesting that companies often use greenwashing to hide devastating ecological practices. Within the lore of the game, Wern and Yang is the ultimate manifestation of that.
The leader explains they are a massive conglomerate. They are logging the surrounding forests, they are aggressively fracking the earth, and they are spilling what the leader refers to as black blood, poisoning the water table. The leader looks at this young, dysfunctional pack and tells them they have to go to Little Meadows, drive out this corporate corruption, and restore balance to the ecosystem. And they have a strict time limit. They must accomplish this within one full cycle of the moon.
Which immediately triggers a fantastic, highly confusing debate among the characters about what a moon cycle actually means in modern terms.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Does the moon follow the Gregorian calendar?
Right.
What happens during a leap year? Does it mean 28 days or 30 days? It is a great grounding reminder that these are not seasoned military operatives. They are culturally fractured individuals trying to translate ancient prophecies into actionable timelines.
But Stands Against the Drill cuts through their bickering to recite the litany. This is the core set of laws that govern the Garou. It is the only thing keeping them from devolving into mindless monsters.
The litany is fascinating because it functions simultaneously as a religious dogma and a tactical rulebook.
He lists several foundational rules. You will combat the worm wherever it dwells. You will respect the territory of another. You will accept an honorable surrender. You will submit to those of higher station. That is all standard ancient warrior code stuff. But then he emphasizes the crucial rules that make this specific modern-day mission a logistical nightmare.
These are the constraints that force them to use strategy rather than just brute force.
First rule he emphasizes, do not eat the flesh of humans. Now, I want to pause here. Why is that explicitly a rule?
Because they are apex predators, and the temptation is always there. The Garus struggle constantly with a force they call courage, which is the primal, uncontrollable rage.
It is always simmering under the surface.
Exactly. Eating human flesh doesn't just nourish them physically, it crosses a psychological threshold. Once you view humanity purely as prey, you lose the empathy required to protect them. It is a rule designed to preserve their own humanity.
The second major rule is, the veil shall not be lifted.
The veil is the supernatural secrecy that keeps the human world ignorant of the Garus' existence. In ancient times, this was easier. Today, it is their biggest vulnerability.
Stands against the drill, looks right at them and says, do not wind up on television. For those of you who do not know what television is, ask those that do. I want you to imagine the pressure of that constraint for a second. You are tasked with destroying a heavily entrenched, multi-million-dollar corporate military force. But if some random teenager catches you on a smartphone camera and uploads it to social media, you have broken the most sacred law of your entire species, and your own kind will likely hunt you down.
It creates an incredible tactical bottleneck.
It really does.
They can't just shift into their massive war forms and tear the corporate headquarters apart in broad daylight. They have to operate with stealth, precision, and plausible deniability.
The leader also adds 2 more strict rules. Do not suffer thy people to tend thy sickness. Meaning, if someone falls in battle, leave them behind. There are no rescue missions that jeopardize the larger pack or the mission. And finally, take no action that causes a cairn, which is a sacred space, to be violated. You do not bring the Wyrm's taint back to the sanctuary.
So if we look at the overarching mission on paper, it is clear. Go to Little Meadows, stop the fracking corporation, don't eat anyone, don't get caught on camera, and don't lead the enemy back home. It seems like a straightforward, albeit difficult, set of parameters.
But this is where the narrative throws a massive wrench into the gears. After that public briefing, each member of the pack is pulled aside by their respective tribal elders for private, one-on-one instructions, and the secret orders they are given are dangerously, wildly contradictory.
This is the genius of the game's design. It guarantees internal conflict. It treats the pack like a poorly managed corporation where every department has misaligned key performance indicators.
That is exactly what it is like.
Let's break down these secret agendas, starting with Artie, the child of Gaia.
Okay, so Artie's elder sits him down and essentially tells him that his primary weapon isn't his claws, it is his empathy. The elder warns Artie that the rest of the pack, particularly the Geta Fenris, are going to want to kill literally anything associated with Vern and Yang.
Which is their instinct.
Right. But the elder reminds him that the teenager working the night shift at the corporate gas station, or the underpaid contractor driving a logging truck, are not agents of cosmic evil. They are just humans caught in the gears of a capitalist machine trying to survive.
They are collateral damage.
Exactly. The elder says that if Artie allows the pack to slaughter the innocent, to let blind rage override wisdom, the Garou will become the very monsters they claim to be fighting. Artie's secret mission is to protect the vulnerable, mitigate the collateral damage, and offer a way out for the lost.
It is a deeply noble goal. It speaks to the burden of modern environmentalism, trying to dismantle harmful systems without destroying the working class people reliant on those systems for survival. But that nuanced approach is immediately juxtaposed with the instructions given to Eagle, the Geta Fenris.
It is the exact polar opposite. Eagle's elder, the same guy who beat him up for days on the journey there, finally speaks to him with a grim sort of respect. He grabs Eagle by the wrists and tells him that claws are not meant for a tidy surgical harvest. He says, you must tear the meat from their throats so thoroughly the ones left behind drown in the blood.
It is chilling.
It is. He explicitly orders Eagle not just to kill the enemy, but to strike absolute primal terror into them. He is told to rip their corporate strongholds to the ground, plunder their resources, and leave nothing behind but ash and bone. And to punctuate this order, the elder literally hands Eagle a heavy battle axe.
Think about the friction that creates. Artie is tasked with saving the innocent collateral damage. Eagle is ordered to ensure there are no survivors, innocent or otherwise, to salt the earth. The failure of one is the success of the other. What about Edwin, the glasswalker? What is his secret directive?
Edwin's handlers give him a very dry, matter-of-fact corporate briefing. They tell him to leave the mindless howling to the berserkers and the baby kissing to the children of Gaia. Their perspective is that clearing out the physical monsters or blowing up a single fracking site in the town is just low-level triage. the corporation will just rebuild it next quarter.
They see the bigger picture.
Yes, Edwin's true mission is to follow the money. He needs to infiltrate the corporate structure, map the supply chains, identify the executives funding the operation, and hack their offshore bank accounts. For the Glasswalkers, the real war is fought with data, leverage, and capital.
Which is a highly pragmatic modern approach. It recognizes that in a capitalist system, money is the true lifeblood of the enemy. But it completely ignores the immediate spiritual rot that the other tribes are focused on. Speaking of the spiritual side, how is Chen, the stargazer, instructed to handle this mess?
Chen's elder sits with him over a cup of tea, balancing on a fallen log. The contrast in tone is staggering. It is incredibly serene. The elder tells Chen that the rest of the pack is already drowning in their own fury. He warns that they are going to want Chen to sing songs of blood and vengeance to fuel their rage.
They want an echo chamber.
Right. But Chen's secret order is to be the mirror. He is instructed not to echo their anger, but to provide the stillness before the storm. He needs to constantly remind them of what they are fighting to protect, not just what they hate. The goal is that when they do strike, it is with absolute, mindful clarity, not a blind, destructive panic.
He is tasked with performing the emotional labor for a group of highly volatile apex predators. It's an almost impossible job. He has to manage Artie's guilt, Eagle's bloodlust, and Edwin's detachment. And then we have Havel, the Silver Fang. His instructions really highlight the decaying arrogance of his tribe.
The arrogance is genuinely staggering. The Silver Fang elder tells Havel that the royal blood in his veins is a heavy crown. He warned Havel that the other tribes will call them arrogant, but only because lesser beings cannot fathom the impossible standards the Silver Fangs hold themselves to.
It's such a narcissistic worldview.
Completely. And his explicit order is this: you are not to bend, you are not to break. You will not bare your neck to those who walk in our shadow. Lead these whelps by example, or die on the battlefield. And then, as practical support for this mandate of superiority, he hands Havel a thick manila envelope stuffed to the gills with untraceable cash.
It is a mandate for absolute unyielding dominance. He is ordered to be the alpha, refusing to compromise with anyone else's methodology. If Artie wants to spare a civilian, but Havel thinks it makes the pack look weak, Havel is under strict orders to override him. If Edwin's hacking takes too long and Havel wants to attack, Havel must force the issue. His success metric is obedience from the others.
And finally, we have the local, the purely wolf-born Papilloni. His elder tells him that the rest of the pack views this Pennsylvania town as just a brief, monster-killing playground before they return to their respective lives. But the land is ancient, and the deep corporate drilling is digging up spiritual secrets that were meant to stay buried.
The local spirits are disturbed.
Exactly. Papilloni's mission is to completely ignore the physical, tactical fight and watch the Umbra, the spirit world. He needs to figure out why the local nature spirits have gone completely silent. And crucially, he is ordered to stop his own packmates from desecrating ancient sacred grounds with their thoughtless, blind rage.
The narrative architecture here is just stunning. The Game Master has engineered a scenario where the true conflict of the story isn't actually going to be the Garou against the evil fracking corporation. The overarching plot is almost secondary. The real war is the Garou against each other.
I completely agree. How can they possibly succeed when the definition of success is entirely different for every single member of the team? Artie succeeds by saving people, Eagle succeeds by murdering everyone, Edwin succeeds by stealing data, Chen succeeds by maintaining peace, Havel succeeds by being an unquestioned charge, and Papilloni succeeds by protecting the ghosts of the land. They are a ticking time bomb, and they haven't even packed up their campsite yet.
Which brings us to a really fun practical question. The logistics. They have their impossible contradictory missions. They have their strict timeline of one moon cycle. But how does this ancient pack of divided monsters actually travel to the modern battlefield?
This is where the absurdity of their situation really peaks. The closing imagery of this source text is fantastic. You have to remember, they are traveling to little meadows. In ancient times, a pack of Garou would just shift into their wolf forms and run through the woods for days, howling at the moon, living off the land.
They can't do that anymore.
No, because Pennsylvania is carved up by highways, private property, and surveillance cameras. They have to navigate modern infrastructure.
We need a motorcade, a very discreet motorcade.
Exactly. So Havel, utilizing his massive envelope of cash and his aristocratic sense of entitlement, provides the luxury Escalade. It's the same Escalade that brought him to the edge of the woods. But Edwin, the Glasswalker, realizes he needs a lot more hardware to do his job. He contacts his human corporate associates and arranges for an assortment of drones, computer servers, firearms, and literal explosives, specifically tannerite, to be gathered in a nearby city, Scranton.
And to transport all of that military-grade hardware, Edwin requires space. So he acquires a U-Haul truck, complete with a shoddy fake ID just in case he gets pulled over by the state police.
I want you to clearly picture this convoy. You have a sleek, black, luxury Cadillac Escalade trailing behind a rented, beat-up U-Haul truck, and the passengers inside are experiencing massive traumatic culture shock. Papilloni, the pure wolf, who just a few days ago didn't know what a tin can was, is now riding shotgun in an Escalade.
Oh, poor Papilloni.
Right. The text describes him doing that thing dogs do in cars where they can't quite get their footing, so they just keep awkwardly falling over every time the car takes a turn.
The sensory overload must be utterly terrifying for him. He's used to the sounds of the forest, and now he is trapped in a sealed metal box smelling of leather and gasoline.
It truly is. There is a moment right before they leave where the other Silverfang elders depart the forest in a private helicopter. Papilloni has an absolute existential crisis watching it. He looks at this massive, loud metal machine defying gravity, and he whispers, "Blades swing, sky spirit cry," and a single tear falls from his wolf eye because he has absolutely no frame of reference for what he is witnessing. He thinks a metal demon is screaming in the sky.
While meanwhile, Eagle, the massive, terrifying Get of Fenris Berserker, is facing his own logistical nightmare trying to fit into the vehicle.
Oh, this part is amazing. I need to explain the forms real quick for this to make sense. So they have their Homid human form and their Lupus wolf form. Then they have their Krynos form, which is the 9-foot-tall, unstoppable, rage-fueled war monster.
The iconic werewolf form.
Right. But Eagle is huge, even as a human, and he refuses to travel in a weak human body. But he can't travel in Krynos form because he'd break the car, and it would trigger mass panic if anyone saw him. So he is forced to use the Glabro form.
The glabro form is the awkward intermediate stage. It is essentially a hulking Neanderthal-like state. It is incredibly dense, hairy, and unsettling, but in the dark, it can vaguely pass as just a very large, very ugly human.
Right, so you have a 7-foot-tall, 300-pound, furious berserker awkwardly squishing himself into the passenger seat of a U-Haul truck. His knees are against the dashboard, he is shedding everywhere, and he is absolutely miserable and furious about the indignity of commuting.
It perfectly encapsulates the tragedy and the dark comedy of the Garou in the modern age. They are these mythical, deeply tragic creatures of immense spiritual power. They have been tasked with saving the very soul of the planet from a cosmic horror. But to actually execute that mission, they are forced to navigate U-Haul rental agreements, fake driver's licenses, traffic laws, and the unbearable awkwardness of carpooling with people they fundamentally despise.
They are fighting a cosmic spiritual war, but they are bogged down by mundane corporate logistics. It entirely strips away the romanticism of the werewolf myth and replaces it with this gritty, frustrating, highly bureaucratic reality. The enemy isn't just a scary monster waiting in the dark. The enemy is zoning laws, supply chain logistics, and public relations.
Which is what makes this narrative so compelling. The game master has designed a world where the physical battle against the worm might actually be the easiest part of their job. The true challenge is overcoming their own systemic dysfunction.
So let's summarize this incredible setup we've explored today. We are looking at a world that is dying, suffocated by a corporate menace that is quite literally drilling into the bleeding heart of the earth under the guise of resource management. To stop it, a deeply fractured, highly dysfunctional pack of werewolves has been assembled.
A very messy pack.
Very. You have a pure, naive wolf who doesn't understand doorknobs. You have a guilt-ridden college kid worried about carbon footprints. You have a tech bro tracking offshore bank accounts. You have a silent berserker looking to bathe in blood. You have a Zen philosopher trying to keep everyone calm. And you have a Russian aristocrat who thinks he owns all of them by divine right.
Quite the team.
They are forced to share an Escalade and a rented U-Haul, armed with wildly conflicting secret orders from their elders. And they have exactly 1 month to go save the planet without ending up on the evening news.
It is a brilliant, multifaceted setup for a story, because the external stakes, the end of the world, are massive, but the internal stakes are even higher. The narrative tension isn't just about whether they have the physical strength to defeat the worm. It is about whether they possess the emotional and social intelligence to survive each other long enough to even try.
I think the social dynamics, the clash of ideologies, the absolute absurdity of their logistical reality all creates this incredibly rich, dense narrative fabric. It proves that this is so much more than just a monster story. It is a story about us.
It really is. And it leaves you with a lot to think about regarding how we tackle massive, overwhelming problems in our own reality. When you look at this pack, where one member is desperate to save the innocent, another wants to burn the entire system to the ground, a third wants to maintain traditional hierarchy, and a fourth just wants to hack the bank accounts and follow the money, it makes you wonder. In any fight against a massive, world-ending systemic issue, whether that is climate change, corporate overreach, or societal decay, is our greatest vulnerability really the power, wealth, and resources of the enemy? Or is it our own absolute, fundamental inability to agree on how to fight them?
That is a phenomenal question and something I think we can all mull over long after this discussion ends. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring the complex dynamics, the hidden tensions, and the deeper meanings in the stories you love. We'll catch you next time.